Hello, sorry I'm late. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. I am very late. I have a kettle that goes on the hob, so it takes bloody ages to boil. And I was trying to bash out some last minute work. Gave myself 5 minutes to make a cup of tea when actually I need to leave myself at least 15. All right, so I'm going to waffle a little bit. I don't know who can join us. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Oh, brilliant. I know Daisy said that she has to pop out. I can't remember. Katie. Hi. Claire. Hello. Charlie's around as well. So this week, last week was a bit of a rush. That 90 minutes went really, really fast. Hello. Hi, Rebecca. How are you? So I want to just start by you telling me, how are you doing? What's going on? Hi, Ruth. How are you? Yeah, you just fill me in. And while you're filling me in, I can fill you in on what I've been doing. What have I been doing? So I realised that it's only a few weeks until my own podcast. Series 3 launches. Been thinking about getting a fringe. What else have I been doing? Nothing of note. I spent last week writing, doing a lot of writing actually, which was nice. Charlie, home alone with Bub today as husband couldn't work from home. So sorry if I am a little AWOL. Please don't apologise. Absolutely fine. I haven't had a chance to record my test yet, but on Sunday, my co-host Frankie and I recorded our first episode. That's so exciting. Have a few notes of things I took from our first recording that I'll put into a post. After I've had a shot at editing it, maybe I can share a sneak peek with the group. I was updated by bio. Yay! Oh, rude. Do you know, interesting fact, I don't know if this is interesting actually. So the reason I had to stop breastfeeding, or it was a family decision, I guess, at 7 months, I could never, ever pump. Once, or maybe twice, I managed to pump a whole bottle, but pretty much always I would sit there with the pump on my boob, both manual and electric. I tried them both, and I would just get a little dribble. And it was so soul-destroying that I just gave up. You bought the mics, whoop whoop, and the adapter. I've had about 7 people say yes. Wow, that's amazing. They're waiting a few more confirms. Have an idea for my artwork, but because I'm not very arty, I'm having a lovely friend help me. That's a great idea. And remember, look at mine. Mine's not even remotely arty. So when we say artwork, it could just be a picture with the name of your podcast on it. That's all mine is. I just did it in Canva. But it's great if you have an arty friend help you. Lisa, purchasing software. Goodness. What software are you purchasing? Microphone, logo design, guest email draft. Wow, you're on it. Katie, you're alternating between being totally excited and completely terrified. That's so normal. Frogging your website. What does that mean? Updating everything, including your brain, and trying out different kinds of earbuds. Been practicing recording myself, reading poetry and talking about microphones. That sounds great. Yeah, all the test recordings. Oh, Charlie, that makes me feel so much better. I just couldn't do it. And I had 2 really, really nice breast pumps from Medela. Luckily, I didn't pay for them because they're quite expensive. And people kept saying, make sure you buy a pump beforehand. I'm really glad that I didn't, because it just didn't work for me. But it does make me sad because I could have just been pumping this whole time and not having to worry about formula, and especially because she's vegan. Okay, I'm going off topic. I'm so sorry. Guys, what is it that's terrifying you? I feel like it is so normal. And I think because we're in this group of like, we're all doing it at the same time, the feelings are kind of heightened. I'm knitting. Oh, Frogging. Oh, that's interesting. Undo your work. Lisa, yes, you've got that to look forward to. Hi, Daisy. How are you? Happy day one. Feel free to jump in and out as you need to. Yeah, pumping. It just didn't work for me. And actually, when I was in Japan, I went to Japan for a work trip and I had to basically go cold turkey. So I was away. I went from breastfeeding exclusively to 4 days away. And I was sat on a plane to Japan, pumping, just pumping under my jumper. It was ridiculous. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like you're all super excited, moving things forward. I don't know if you caught my post this week, but when Katie and I chatted, we realised that if you use Libsyn to host, I don't know what host you're picking, but they will submit your show to iTunes for you. I did it like a backwards way. I submitted everything myself and then I picked my host, which was a really long-winded way to do things and it was completely unnecessary. So yeah, I don't know what every host offers, but what I'd said in the post was Libsyn does it for you. I'm pretty sure everybody else will do it as well. Psychological, that you guys are all established creatives and entrepreneurs, and I'm working as an OT, so what am I doing? I mean, I feel like if you asked any one of us in here, none of us would describe ourselves as established creatives. That's just imposter syndrome. Everybody has imposter syndrome. You're an occupational therapist. That's like, to me, that feels like, oh, you've got a proper job. So can we just have a session on things I need to know about birth, breastfeeding, etc., so I'm not too terrified of it all? Oh my God, I would literally love to do a session all about birth because I loved giving birth. Separate conversation. And I didn't, hypnobirthing is apparently amazing. I didn't do hypnobirthing, but I loved childbirth. I loved it. It's so doable. Honestly, I hate bikini waxes. Like they're too painful for me. But I managed 27 hours with paracetamol, I think I did. Also, I had the best of both worlds because I also then went into hospital for an emergency C-section. So then I got like gas and air, morphine, epidural. It was dreamy. I loved it. Yes, Rebecca. Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so let's talk about guest management first, and then we can go into editing a little bit. So when it comes to guest management, and I'm calling it guest management because I think it's really important that we all remember that this is our podcasts. These are our podcasts. These are your podcasts. So you're inviting guests on, and it's really lovely if you get people who are like people you fangirl over or whatever, or people you think are super amazing and have a bigger platform than yours. But it's your podcast. You're also doing them a favor in terms of it's mutually beneficial, right? So they get to talk about themselves for an hour. And I know I keep saying this, but I really don't think you can underestimate how much people love to talk about themselves and be asked about themselves and have someone compliment them and then have an episode all about them that is then promoted. And all they have to do is just talk, pick up the metaphorical phone and talk. That's dreamy. So yeah, I'm just reading your comments. Yes, amazing, Charlie. Awesome birth experiences all round. I really want to read Still Like an Artist, actually. Yes, so this, you shouldn't feel, no, not you shouldn't. I totally understand when it feels kind of scary to be asking someone to be on your podcast. But just remember, this is amazing for them. Imagine how you would feel if someone asked you to be on their podcast. You'd be flattered and excited, and the worst that they can say is no. And that really doesn't happen very often. So some of the things that I decided quite early on were that I would have a few must-haves when picking guests. So I needed to have a rapport with them, whether that was via Twitter, whether I follow them on Instagram and we exchange DMs. Ideally, we would know each other and have some sort of either online relationship or know each other in person. But either way, some sort of rapport. And that was just to keep the tone of my podcast the way that I wanted it to be. It's all, I like to be super honest and have really frank chats with people about blogging. So having a rapport with a guest felt like it's a really important thing to always have at the forefront of my mind. Because if there might be somebody who I really, really admire, like, I don't know, but if we don't have some sort of relationship, I think it's much harder to get to the nitty-gritty. Anyhow, that's for you to decide. The other thing was that I initially wanted them all to be women, but I've relaxed on that now because I want to hear different voices. And, for this season, and probably it'll be the next season now, I'm really interested in diversity because my podcast is basically all white women who are like me, and the occasional man. So it's just, it's a big old pile of privilege. And I think that can sometimes make for quite a dull conversation circle. And I don't think that's really going to change hugely in series 3. There's been like subtle shifts in the people that I'm talking to, but not really. And then the last thing is that I wanted them to have they have to have a blog or some sort of online presence. They could be an Instagrammer primarily, and the blog could come after, but it's about blogging. So I didn't want to have someone like, I can't even think of an example, but sometimes I found that where more and more podcasts pop up in the same sector as you every day, of course they do. That was happening before I started podcasting. It's happening after, and you'll find the same thing. Sometimes you see guests just circle. So a guest that I might have had on my podcast people will hear them and be like, oh, they're really interesting. I want to interview them for mine. And I do the same with other people. And now I really try not to do that. So if there are guests that have been a really big guest on someone else's podcast, I don't avoid them. It's just that I won't then ask them on just because they were great on somebody else's podcast that's kind of in the same remit as mine. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm just gonna, while I hear your thoughts, I'm just gonna read your comments. Definitely need to remember that the worst that can happen is they say no. I also keep thinking I need to pick people with small following, but why? I can ask anyone. I loved how in your example you asked someone who you said you'd asked in the past. Perfect, yeah. Someone asked to be on it, but I've never heard them, seen them on video, so I'm unsure. Yeah. Ruth, yes. So something that will happen is that people will start asking to be on yours. And I can give you, this is really tricky actually, because I've got an example, but I also don't want to, okay, it's difficult because you're going to probably work out who it is, but that's fine. I just won't say their name. So it's 2 examples. So I have had initially, when people started asking to be on the podcast, I wasn't doing seasons. So it was in season 1 and I thought I'm just going to go on forever. So it actually was like, oh, brilliant. Okay, someone wants to be on mine. And I just accepted them, even though I didn't like what they were about. We knew each other online, but I don't like their tone of voice. I'm not really interested in their content. So it worked out fine, but it was very much about that person, because, and I'm not saying this means that this is the same for everybody, and you should always say no to people who ask you. But in this case, somebody asked me and I didn't have any connection with them. I had an online connection with them, so I knew of them, but I didn't have a rapport. I didn't have a rapport with them. And I just said yes because I needed guests and I was flattered that they'd asked me. And I also used to sometimes ask, like, if you want to be a guest, message me. I don't do that anymore. And that's because this person wanted to push their agenda. So they very much had something they wanted to sell and something that they wanted to use my podcast for, my audience to sell to, which is totally fine. Like, that's nothing to be ashamed of or to be burned for. But it didn't feel right to me. And I was kind of lucky in that at the time I had Jane Carrington as a coach, so I was able to talk this sort of stuff out with her. And she had a similar, she's a podcaster as well, and she had a similar experience, funnily enough, with the same person. But yeah, so it's a tricky one. But then at the same time, there's been people who've asked to be on a podcast who I just haven't thought about asking them because I didn't think they'd be interested in it. Or I just didn't think about it. And they've been amazing. Like,